Lorth Needa found himself on the Star Destroyer Avenger, which was part of Darth Vader's Death Squadron during the Battle of Hoth. Despite being a loyal officer and a fairly competent one, a mistake, not even entirely his fault, would be his undoing. Those events are part of The Empire Strikes Back, but there is more to this man's story before we get there. This is the Imperial Remnant. Stand by for briefing. Born on Coruscant in the days of the Galactic Republic, Lorth Needa would enlist in the Galactic Navy during the Clone Wars. He served well and climbed to the rank of Lieutenant Commander under the Coruscant Home Defense Fleet. He was given command of a Carrack-class light cruiser called the Integrity. These ships were built on the planet Esselis by Demorian Manufacturing Corporation. This was something of a budget ship, meant to fill in the gap left when not enough capital ships were available. Despite being a cheaper option, they were heavily armed. The rectangular ship was nearly 1,200 feet long, it was 240 feet wide, and about 250 feet tall. Its crew capacity was just shy of 1,100 personnel and could carry 142 ground troops. The ships were designed to operate with far less. Simple control systems and advanced automation meant that the ship could fly with just 2 pilots, though that would not be ideal, especially in combat scenarios. In 19 BBY, Separatist forces were bearing down on Coruscant, the galaxy's capital planet. This battle would be known as the Battle of Coruscant for obvious reasons. The enemy forces were led by General Grievous. The cyborg general was successful in the capture of Supreme Chancellor Sheev Palpatine. During the battle, Needa managed to surround Grievous's flagship, a massive Providence-class dreadnought called the Invisible Hand. Needa, following naval protocol, demanded Grievous surrender. The implied threat would be that he would destroy the gunship if Grievous didn't comply. Of course, Grievous wouldn't surrender, but Needa could not destroy the ship when he learned that Palpatine may be being held hostage on board. Needa didn't believe Grievous and gave him 10 minutes to produce proof of Palpatine's capture before he would open fire. It was in this intervening time that a pair of Jedi Knights, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, with some help from R2-D2, rescued the Chancellor. The Invisible Hand was already falling apart from the battle when Skywalker took the helm. He brought in what was left of the ship into as good of a landing as anyone could expect. Needa must have had a pit in his stomach realizing Grievous was telling the truth, but he was impressed by Skywalker's piloting skills in bringing in the wrecked ship for something of a landing. There's a legend that Needa contacted the Jedi Council to inform him that Anakin and Obi-Wan were successful in rescuing Palpatine. He also asked Jedi Grand Master Yoda to have the Coruscant forces stand down and not fire at the pieces of Grievous's ship. Instead, Needa requested fire speeders to douse the fires aiding Anakin and Obi-Wan. At the end of the Clone Wars, when the Galactic Empire was declared and the Republic lost, Needa remained in the Navy. He would eventually be promoted to the rank of captain and move from a Carrack-class light cruiser to an Imperial-class Star Destroyer called Avenger. This ship was part of Death Squadron under the control of Darth Vader. After the Alliance to Restore the Republic struck a major blow against the Empire by destroying the Death Star over Yavin 4, Death Squadron was tasked with finding the Rebels' new base of operations and stamping them out once and for all. Going back to Legends, it's said that Needa was an advisor to Admiral Ozzel. Vader hated Ozzel, and the association Needa had with him made Vader and Palpatine wary of him. This is why Vader was quick to execute anyone close to Ozzel for even the slightest mistake. 6 months after the destruction of the Death Star, a group of rebels were trapped aboard the Star Destroyer Desolator. The ship was headed for the planet Isis, where a temporary rebel base was. The rebels on board acted quickly and managed to reprogram the Navicomputer on the Desolator. Instead of heading to Isis, the Star Destroyer flew into a star, designated G-138. The rebels sacrificed themselves, but the base on Isis remained safe. Of course, Needa was not on the ship, but he did make a statement to the press, the Imperial News Bureau, or the INB, saying that the ship malfunctioned and the idea that rebels caused this incident was ludicrous. He was ever the company man. Project Swarm saw hundreds of thousands of probe droids comb the galaxy for the rebels' hidden base. It was eventually found, and Vader ordered an all-out assault. The officer in charge of the fleet bungled the initial assault and gave the Rebel Alliance time to prepare their defenses. The Battle of Hoth wasn't overly long. The rebels had no delusions of winning the fight. Their only goal was to stall Imperial forces long enough to get most of their personnel on shuttles and away from the Empire. While Vader personally went to oversee the ground assault, Needa stayed on the Avenger and engaged many fleeing rebel ships. He did his duties well until a specific ship, trailing the rest of the group, was spotted. the Millennium Falcon. Now, this exact ship had become a thorn in the Empire's side and even attacked Vader and his wingmates at the Battle of Yavin. Vader wanted that ship captured, and he wanted the rebels on board taken in as prisoners. Due to unrelated circumstances, the Falcon's hyperdrive was acting up, and the rebels were unable to jump into hyperspace and out of the Empire's clutches. Needa pursued the freighter, but the pilot, Han Solo, was far more skilled than anyone anticipated. Solo outmaneuvered the fleet, using the size of the Star Destroyers against them. He even caused 3 Star Destroyers to nearly collide with one another. In the confusion, he was able to slip away into an asteroid field. This maneuver was incredibly dangerous, but sticking around the Imperial fleet basically guaranteed capture or death. Needa had the unpleasant responsibility of telling Darth Vader that the ship got away. He assured the Dark Lord that the ship must have been destroyed, but Vader didn't buy it. He ordered his ships to follow straight into the asteroid field, guaranteeing a lot of damage and probably a lot of death. Needa ordered Lieutenant Obrax to send Theta Squadron out to find the Falcon. Any pilot who returned from patrol early to avoid colliding with an asteroid would be executed. Theta Squadron was made up of TIE fighters. The Falcon was forced out of hiding due to nothing the Empire was doing, and Solo made another insane-seeming, but brilliant in results, maneuver. He flew right at the Star Destroyers, confusing them long enough to slip past their weapons. He skimmed the surface of the massive ship so he couldn't be targeted and buzzed right over the bridge. He attached his ship to the back of the Avenger's bridge, which confused its sensors, making it appear as the Falcon had simply disappeared. Needa once again had the misfortune of telling Vader. This time, he took a shuttle over to Vader's command ship, the Super Star Destroyer, the Executor. That way, he could deliver the bad news in person. Vader used the Force to collapse Needa's windpipe, choking the man to death in front of the rest of the crew. Vader mockingly accepted the apology that Needa delivered, even though Needa was no longer alive to hear it. News of his death spread quickly, and the TIE pilots risking their lives in the asteroid field returned early and avoided any punishment since the man who made the threat to them was dead. Up until losing the Falcon, which wasn't really his fault, Lorth Needa was a very capable commander. He was always afraid of Vader, rightfully so, but thought facing the intimidating figure in person was the appropriate thing to do. I do give him credit for this move. Delivering the message in any other way wouldn't have spared his life anyway. If Vader wanted you dead, you were dead. Needa's story came to an abrupt end here, but Legends has more to say. Vader's path of vengeance wasn't over. He made sure any of Needa's family members were removed from the Imperial military, one way or the other, regardless of rank or role. Not only were some removed, but others were killed outright. It seems that the more ambitious and capable the Needa family member was seen to be, the more likely that they were to die. Rumors circulated that Needa intentionally didn't capture the Falcon because of rebel sympathies. As I research these Imperial officers, namely the ones in The Empire Strikes Back, I hear rumors like this more and more, and it's just not the case, just as it was not the case for Admiral Ozzel. And for more on Ozzel, you can check out this transmission next.